Christian parenting.
Hey, Jessica, welcome to Part of the Mess. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Now, tell me where you are. I should know this. Are you in Louisiana? Is that where you guys live?
Yes, we're in Louisiana. We're in West Monroe, so northeast, close to like Mississippi. We're like an hour from Vicksburg, Mississippi at the most. But yeah, we're here. We actually lived in Austin. We after the show ended, we decided to go kind of just do a little adventure of our own as a family. So we moved to Austin, Texas.
Yeah.
Right outside,
Okay.
of Austin. And we had a lot of friends there, my best friends from there, and moved back there to take care of our family's ranch. And so we moved there for 5 years, and it was amazing. But we knew kind of towards the end that we wanted to come back home to
Yeah.
Louisiana, and we do love Texas. We actually have a ranch out there close to Abilene, and a couple places in
Oh,
Abilene where our
cool.
kids were. They went to college there. Our two oldest did Abilene Christian
Oh,
University, and so now they have recently moved back because our oldest daughter um, had a baby. So they moved back here to finish college so that I can help with the baby. So now we're grandparents, and we love it.
wow. That's
Yes.
so exciting. Yeah, we're in the Dallas area. And so we've got several kids that from our school go to Abilene and love it. So that is a
Yes.
great
It's a
place. Well,
great
it's
school.
for those that don't know or aren't as familiar with you, will you just kind of set up who you are, who you're married to, how old the kids are, and all that good stuff?
Of course. So I am Jessica Robertson. I am married to Jep Robertson. He is the youngest of Phil Robertson's kiddos. We obviously were on a show called Dynasty, as well as some other shows. We did a spinoff of our own called Jep and Jess Growing the Dynasty. And so we have 5 kids, 4 biological, 1 adopted child, whom we adopted when he was 3 days old. And so, yeah, we have 2 grown kids that are married and one just finished college. The other one is still going through college, and they both live here. And then we have a daughter that's graduated high school this May. And then we have 2 boys left at home. One will be a sophomore next year, and then we'll have a third grader. So big jump. So we have
Wow.
our youngest, yeah, is 9, and then we also have a grandbaby who is almost 4 months old. So they'll be
Okay, so
really.
you can answer any question of any stage if you got it
I'll
covered.
answer it truthfully, but I don't know if I even still have this. I mean, right? Every child is so different. So parenting is so different. We parented each kid had their little quirks that we had to work around, and so it's not always the same, right?
Yeah, that's right. Well, when we were recording this, you just recently lost your amazing father-in-law, Phil. And so I wanted to give you just a chance, and I have a million questions, but maybe one would be for you personally, what do you hope people learned from his life, either public or private, when they engaged with him and his story?
Goodness. Well, his life was very public, which is like all of ours, pretty much. But his voice, I feel like, rang further, than most all of ours, and his platform that God built. And obviously, everything was centered around Jesus and our faith, right? And so,
Yeah.
this, you know, it's just a legacy of faith in Jesus Christ. And that's really what we want to raise our kids in. And we really hope that other people that we interact with and come in contact with us, everything that they see us do in our lives, whether it's on our platforms or in person, that's really our faith in Jesus is the core value and the rock of our family.
I love it. He's so bold about it. And I can imagine even before there were cameras, he would just talk to the person at the gas station. So were you raised in a Christian home? Was that weird coming into that? Or were you like, oh yeah, this is what I knew growing
Yeah,
up
I
to?
grew up in a Christian home for sure. My dad wasn't necessarily super church going or anything. And so I will say he came to his faith later in life, way later. But I grew up going to a Pentecostal church, all my life. And so with my grandmother, my mom, my aunts and uncles and cousins. And so, yes, that was definitely part. I was really close with my mom's mom, who is and that was a big influence, like spiritual influence in my life.
Mm,
Like there wasn't a day that she had no money, but she was so rich in Jesus and love. And so there was never a day she didn't talk about Jesus. You never were around her where she didn't talk about Jesus and the goodness.
so
And
fun.
so I grew up like that, and Kay grew up very similar. So Kay and I have always been super close. And my relationship with my grandmother, the same with her and her grandmother. It's like she was raised by her grandmother pretty much. And so I wasn't raised, but we just had such a great relationship together. And so even though it was a little different, like my dad was not this godly role model that I had. My dad had other things. He was a great father. He taught me everything and was very present in my life. Where Phil had, like you said, his voice was loud and he shared the gospel with everybody. And that was such an amazing foundation that I loved and admired and wanted for our family that was a little different than my upbringing. But yeah, the moment I met them, I mean, you knew their faith and they embraced me. And Kay became such not just another mother to me, but like a close friend. And of course, it was just such an honor to be able to sit in their living room year after year and just hear Phil, share the gospel or just share something else that he learned about Jesus. He always had a Bible beside him. And so he would always, I mean, every day I saw him. I actually, when Jep and I first got married, I would go down and help. Like I didn't have like a normal job. So I would go down, and at the time, Duck Commander was at Phil and Kay's house. And so I would go down there because we had one vehicle. So it was either sit at home by myself or go down there. So I would go answer phones, take orders for duck calls. Kay cooked big meals every single day for lunch
Wow.
for all the employees, which it wasn't a huge crowd back in those days as it is today. But she would cook. So I would watch and learn how to cook Jep's favorite meals, in the kitchen,
Wow.
help clean dishes and just be there and present. But every day he would pull out his Bible, and it was such an amazing thing to be able to like witness that and to be able to carry that on, for generations.
Yeah. Gosh, I think about, and we'll know one day, but what heaven must be like when he got there. Just the thousands of
Yeah.
people that are there because of him and your family is really a cool thought to think about. So one day you'll get to see too, right?
I love it. Yes, I know.
I love it. Will
That's all
you
right.
tell me a little bit? We'll switch gears to your
Yeah.
family, the adoption story. I think there's probably many moms, and I've got grown kids, but I remember this feeling when my kids were little. I was like, should we adopt? Is this something God wants us to do? And there's probably a lot of families, either they have just adopted or it's a prayer, it's a thought in their heart, and they're kind of navigating through. So I would just love for you to tell a little bit about your story and what God's taught you through the adoption process.
Sure. So I wanted to adopt a few years before Chep actually decided that this would be a good thing for our family, and that's probably just a natural motherly instinct, and when you see a need, and that was just like my parents. And a lot like Phil and Kay, they always welcome people in their home. If there was a need, if somebody needed somewhere to stay, like we've taken people in, and give them a
Mm.
place to stay for X amount of time or whatever. And so that was very much a part of like my upbringing. So when you see a need and you feel like that's the Holy Spirit calling you to move on that and act on it. But we
Yeah.
were really fortunate. We had four biological kids. We were young when we had our kids. So by the time I was 28, we had four kids.
Wow.
And then I was unable to have any more children, and which was fine. And then we started working a lot with different orphanages and like one at the church. And then I feel like through the show, there are other opportunities to see needs
Yeah.
were presented to us. And I just felt this huge calling, like in our early 30s, to just, this is something I feel like we should do. Jet was not necessarily on board because obviously it was the craziness of the show was going on.
Right.
And also we had four kids and we were really blessed and fortunate, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so he's like, why, we don't need to do this right now. And it wasn't until a couple of years later, he went on a mission trip with our church. He was filming for something and he just saw how happy these kids were that had nothing. I won't cry,
Yeah.
but it's, just basically it tugged on his heart. And so he came home and he was like, I feel like this is the Holy Spirit put it on your heart. And I feel like it's time that we can do this. So
Wow.
at that point, I was, I guess, 34, and we went down a closed adoption route through a private adoption attorney, just because of the show. And we had
Yeah.
other kids for the protection of our kids, for the protection of the child we were going to adopt, and so we started that process. And going into it, she's an amazing, godly woman, and started everything off with prayer. So we felt so at home and comfortable and at peace for where we were. And it took about 10 months
Mhm.
before we got that call from her. We had a couple of failed adoptions. And we went into it and said, we don't care about gender or race. That we, that's
Yeah.
that doesn't matter to us. But we were actually working with a birth mom at the time, and we were doing a closed adoption. And towards the end, she had decided she was thinking about doing an open adoption, which at that point, I mean, I had spent months praying for this child, praying for
Right.
her, and I was like, I don't want to lose this opportunity just because we want it
Yeah.
to be closed. And so, but in the meantime, there were some problems that she'd been arrested and done some other things. So it was kind of shaky ground already. And then we got this call out of the blue on a Saturday. I was at a soccer field with River and got a call from the attorney and said there was a baby born yesterday.
Wow.
She called me and she wants a closed adoption. And so I was like, what do we do here? And like I said, I was torn. I was like, am I choosing this child
Right.
over
Right.
another? And it was this hard pull for me. So I said, can I just go see the baby? And so she scheduled a time for me to go. It was the next day. And I went in and held the baby all day and fed him, changed him. Obviously, it was our little Gussie. And I remember being like, I still torn, like, am I choosing this? Am I not choosing
Right.
this other child? And so, but I had a sweet friend who was there, came to visit, and I said, I'm just torn. And she said, if God didn't want you here right now, you wouldn't be here right now.
Yeah.
And it was like
Yeah.
this overwhelming piece of like, you're right. He wouldn't
Yeah.
have opened this door for us. And Jep came up to the where we were, and he looked at me and said, "Yep, we'll take him." Just like that. It was so Robertson way. It was like
Yeah.
not
We'll
this
take
emotion.
them.
Yeah, because I was torn. I thought I'm gonna just know when I hold this baby, this is my child, right? You're gonna get this
Right.
sense of, but in all reality, I could have gone in and picked every baby up out of the nursery and loved that baby because it was a choice, right? Your heart,
Yes.
like I could easily love any, and they're all just these sweet innocent babies here, right? Yeah, and so
Right.
fresh and so that's where I was. But when he came in, and it was such confidence because the birth mom had no prenatal care. She had no doctor's visit. She just came in, had this baby. And so I didn't know, like, they didn't know the birth dad. It was just like, what if something's wrong? And Jeff was like, if something's wrong, we'll face it. And I was just
Mm.
like constantly getting that confidence and affirmation from my husband of going, whatever it is, we can deal with it.
Wow. Wow.
And so we brought him home the next day. So at least same thing.
Wow. I
So
think you bring up in the beginning a really common struggle that women are sometimes, most of the time, ready before their husband is. So, was that hard, that wait between when you felt that call and when he heard from the Lord?
it was, but I will say that I never pressured him to adopt. Like it would just be something I would like. He would walk in, I'd be crying about something, and it would be about seeing a child in need, and he would be
Yeah.
like, I'm just so emotional, which I am. I'm an emotional person by nature, but it wasn't something we talked about all the time. It would just be like something would prick my heart, and he would witness me seeing that, and then at some point, I remember him saying, I think that's the Holy Spirit working on your heart,
Wow.
and we
Yeah.
need to move on this. So that
So
was
good.
not all in like that, right? And so I don't think adoption is for everybody, but I think it's for a lot of people. And I think
Yeah.
especially Christian homes, when, I think Jep did, they had this study where it was like, if in the foster system alone, like if just a fraction of Christians from a churches would adopt, there would be no one in the foster system.
It's
And
incredible.
it's an amazing thing to know and to share. And I would encourage people, if you want to go down that route, it's not easy. Like our
Yeah.
best is different from our other kids, as far as like, obviously he's a Black child, which, that didn't matter to us at all. But he's had little quirks, sensory issues that our other kids didn't have, that we had to navigate through, right? And those were hard. They've been kind of tricky for us, but I mean, he's such an amazing kid, and he brings so much joy, and he loves the Lord, and he loves people, and he's so generous and kind, even as young as he is. He has had issues with, even as a little one. I think he was like 2 when he started saying, "Why am I brown and you're gray, mommy?"
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
those were issues and it's so hard because you love them. I'm like, when his pasty would fall on the ground, I would pick it up and put it in my mouth just like I did, right, rinse it off, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Moms
Yeah.
would when your first kid, you're like washing everything. You're like, here, it's clean, right?
Yeah,
There
yeah,
you
that's right,
go.
right.
He drinks out of the same drink that I do.
Yeah.
Those things are I'm like, you're my child. Like you're no different, in my eyes.
Mhm.
But he felt different. And those are things that we've had to obviously reassure him constantly. And we've had those opportunities and but it's hard. I'm sure it's hard every day when he looks in the mirror and he sees that he's different and
Yeah,
he wants to feel the same. And
right,
even though, it's hard because I'm like, baby, you're beautiful. Like God made you perfectly. We're all the same, right?
right.
Those are just skin tones. That's it.
That's right. That's right. I've had several friends adopt over the years. And I think even 10 years ago, people weren't as honest about how hard it was and just these different unique struggles of wherever, birth order or, country of origin or whatever. But I think people are being more honest, but still on the other side saying it was all worth it. Like I knew from the beginning he was supposed to be in my family and no, it wasn't easy. So I love that. I think culture has allowed us maybe to overshare, but in a beautiful way. It's like people are being honest that like this isn't easy, but so worth it. And that's what I hear you saying.
Yes, yes, totally. And my husband works for a charity called All God's Children International, and they do a lot of orphan care and adoption, different things, but a lot of orphan care and aging out, like building these new homes called House of Hope for these kids that age out, which, so all of that has been adoption, foster, being a part of the foster system. We have several friends that after we adopted signed up to be foster parents. We didn't go that route, but it would be really hard for me to not, if I see a need, not to even feel
Yeah.
that need to adopt again. My husband's going on another trip with AGCI, All God's Children International, and to Ethiopia. And I'm like, if I go, it's going to be really hard to know that we have the means and we have the love and we have the room to not want to open that door again, because he's like, Jessica, you got to draw. You can't just
Yeah.
put it off everybody. But so that I think that's just part of my heart and nature of wanting, just it's hard to see a child hurting
Yeah.
and all they want is love,
Right.
something that our kids easily have. And we
That's
sometimes
right.
take that for granted here.
That's right.
Uh,
Well, will you give me a couple organizations after we end to link to? So we'll link to that one. So if there's someone that's like, I think I want to foster, I think I want to adopt, but I don't even know where to begin. Will you send me some links to things that people could look up?
I will for sure.
Okay. Okay. Awesome. I want to tell you about my friend Lindsay. She's probably listening, but she is my friend that's single in her early 40s and she never married, never had her own kids, but she is like the mentor aunt to so many. And so she had foster care on her heart, but was like, I'm a working girl, I'm single, what do I do? And so she signed up. I'm not going to get it right, but somewhere there's like respite care or something in the middle of like, we're about to place this foster child, but there's a 6 or 8 day window
Yeah.
when either they're born. And so she bought a minivan. Is that not the cutest thing? And when I call her, I'm like, who's in your van this week? And she's like, I've got 3 siblings. I only have them for a week. Or she bought pack and plays. And I thought, how amazing as a single woman of God to say, I only get them for a week, but I'm going to love them so well and make sure they're happy in this place of transition. And so I think God can just be so creative like that to say, no, adoption may not be for everybody or foster care, but there's so many ways we can help.
I love that. And there's a Foster the Village is a company in Austin that I have loved. And they do that. They get all these donations and everything. And any need, whether it's diapers, wipes, clothes, pack and place, car seats, all that, they're on the spot. They have warehouses full of, and so when they get that call, somebody needs, there's a foster family going to take this child, they immediately go to their aid. And I think that is such an amazing thing. It doesn't have to be adoption only. Like you said, it could be that you have the time, or you may have some money, or something that you can do. Maybe it's your platform, like
Yeah.
just raising awareness for it.
Yeah, that's amazing. All right, let's talk about your newest book. You've got several, but Dear Valor, how did that come about and what do you hope people take away from that book?
So yes, here is Dear Valor. We partnered with Brave Books. Actually, my sister-in-law did a book the year before, and we just loved everything Brave stands for. And knew we wanted to partner with them. So when we started talking about a book, we obviously adoption is heavy on our hearts and minds. And so Dear Valor is a tiger, and he has his adoptive parents are Arthur and Fiona, which are lions. So right away, they're different, and there's a time we got to kind of fill in include what Gus has gone through and asked us about being different. And so we obviously Valor starts getting asked by his friends, why are you different? Why don't you look like your mom and dad?
Mm,
And he didn't even kind of realize it at first, and so
yeah.
he starts to realize and start asking that question. And so one thing we did with Gus early on is we talked about birth parents, but your birth parents are this, your birth parents look like this. So why do I still, your birth mommy looks like that, so
Yeah.
and that's something right away. I feel like being very open and honest is the
Yeah.
way to go. And so, but anyway, so Valor obviously is struggling, wants to know who his birth parents are, which we haven't gone down that route with Gus. But I'm sure at some point he's going to want to know, and dig and find out,
Yeah. Yeah.
some
Yeah. That's
info.
right.
But so anyway, Dear Valor, it's a really sweet story about obviously parents' love, unconditional love
Right.
for their adopted child, and how he feels a little different and maybe hurt by his birth parents not being there.
Mm,
Which that's the beauty of adoption, is not all birth parents, they're not bad just because they cannot provide a means.
right.
Or sometimes that's the most sacrificial love I've
That's
ever
right.
witnessed, is realizing that and giving your child this opportunity that
Mm,
he or she may not have had. So I look at birth moms, and obviously I'm so grateful that she chose life,
yeah.
right? That
Absolutely.
could have been something that didn't happen. So yeah, so Brave, we got to write this beautiful book, and it's hopefully people can take away that to be able empathetic, right? To be able to talk to the kids that may not know anything about adoption. There's a lot of kids that really just don't know a lot about adoption. A little quick story of Gus, last summer, he made All Stars. So he had this new team that came together, and there were some other Black kids on the team too. And I remember walking up, and they were all waiting on the game. And Gus says something, mom, calls him mom. And the kid goes, "That's your mom?" And he's like, he said, "Yes, I'm mom." And he goes, "That's your mom?" And it was like he had no. I said, "Yeah, I'm his mom. Gus is adopted." And he goes, "Adopted?" Like it blew his mind. He didn't know the word almost. You know what I'm saying? It was like,
Wow.
I guess from where, if you grow up and you never witness other kids being adopted, right? Then you're in a bubble of not knowing anything. This book was a way that we can, basically have those conversations and then read something and their mind open to other possibilities of how even Valor might feel, right? Even Gus feels
Yeah.
different. So how do we be empathetic, teach kids to be empathetic and know, like, they might feel different. How do I make them feel
Yeah.
included? How do I not make them feel like they are not part of this team or this classmate, or that, all these things just because they're different, right? And it doesn't even have to be that they're a different color. They could just be different. They have other different mental issues that might set them apart, right? Or look
Yeah.
differently in some way. So it's just about being able to have those conversations, like, that you don't even know that you need to have with your kids. You think they
Yeah.
know about adoption, right? But not all kids do, and not all families. So it was such a fun project to work with Brave. I work with Brave still on promoting even their Brave Plus platform, which is their streaming service. And I love just how amazing they vet these programs, all their books. Every book has a good, very Christian based, biblical base, but
Yeah.
a good lesson to learn, right? And every book I read about of Brave, there's a moment, and these are kids' books, but there are moments in every single book I get choked up and I can hardly like get the words out, because it's that unconditional love, redemptive forgiveness in some stories, and so it's just the love of Christ, right? We're sharing
Yeah.
through all these books, and Dear Valor is just one way we are using that.
I love it. I love that, like you said, this would be extremely helpful for a child that's been adopted. But for my kids that haven't, this is so great for just that empathy and compassion to go. And that could be anything. It'd be someone that's in a wheelchair or someone that's got a learning disability. It's like once they have language, because a lot of times when I meet parents, they want a script. It's like, what do I say about this? And it's like, okay, giving a story like that gives people a script or a scenario for them to not bump up against it the first time at Walmart and then have no idea what to say and be rude. It's like, and I think what you said is adoption isn't bad. It's not like, oh, poor Gus. It's like, oh my word, amazing that this is his story, and amazing that he gets two sets of parents and all the things that come through the story of discovery. And like you said, just the empathy of someone going like, oh, I never thought about being in his shoes and what that might feel
Yeah.
like.
Well, and obviously, the biblical route is like we're all adopted through Jesus,
Yeah.
through Christ. And I know in the back of the book, one scripture we got to put in is Ephesians 1, 4, and 5. Even as he chose us in him before the foundation of the world, that we should be holy and blameless before him. In love, he predestined us for adoption to himself as sons through Jesus Christ according to the purpose of his will. And that's just such a powerful scripture of just knowing, like,
Yeah,
just like we're all adopted, like, right? We're all
that's right.
adopted to him. And
That's
so
right.
it's not a bad thing, it's biblical.
It's biblical. I love that. All right. Tell me what God's teaching you right now in parenting. It could be the grandparenting, it could be your third grader. Just give us one thing that you're learning right now.
Yes. Oh my goodness. I think just slowing down. I feel
Mm.
like slowing down, I'm still speeding up, right? There's still so much going on, but slowing down to enjoy like being a grandma now and having, I feel like I didn't hold my babies enough and smell them and
Yeah.
just cuddle and look at them, just stare at them, right? Because I
Yeah.
was busy. I was a busy mom. We had 4 kids in less than 6 years. So I
Wow.
was either nursing or pregnant or,
Yeah.
just do all those things, going to story time, going to the library, going to the park. And it's just slowing down enough to where you can appreciate those moments, right? Even as a grandmother or Gus, like being so much younger than our other kids. Now he's doing all stars, right? So it's just enjoying those moments. I feel like God is teaching me to slow down because I'm a fast paced person.
Yeah.
Rarely sit down at all during the days. I never watch TV during the day because I'm just like, there's always something
Moving.
to do.
Yeah.
And so I feel like it's been a struggle for me to slow down, say no to some things so that I can slow down, right? And
Yeah.
so I feel like as a new grandma, that's something I'm really trying to focus on is so that I can be present still for my kids and my grandchild
Yeah.
and still run around with my 9-year-old.
I love that's amazing. All right, I want to end here. One thing that keeps oozing from you and your eyes and your heart is just the power of a mother's love. And I think that as Christian parents, like we want to be busy and do, and we want like people listening to the podcast are like, you tell me what to do. I'll have them memorize these 55 scriptures and I'll put them in a Christian school and a camp and all that. And so will you just remind us that like how far our love from Jesus flowing out of us to our kids matters? Because I think if you stay home a lot, you can kind of downplay your role and like, oh, I'm just a mom is kind of a phrase I hear a lot. And I know I've said.
Yeah, I know I've heard that a lot too. And I was really fortunate to get to stay at home with our kids. I always worked. I cleaned houses. I did real estate for a but I always had a job where I could still be present and be with my kids as much as possible during the day. I mean, a mother's love, I feel like it has no boundaries. It never
Mm,
ends, right? We say, oh, look, we're going to raise our kids. Then they're going to be adults and go. And I'm like, I have a 22-year-old now, and that like I'm still very present in her life. And I'm very fortunate she wants me to be, and she allows me to be very
yeah.
present in her life. And so, I mean, it's one of the greatest callings, I feel like. I mean,
Yeah.
seeing life come into the world and seeing your baby, our oldest, um, like bringing life into this world, like that is the biggest miracle to me that God has ever allowed a woman to ever witness because
Yeah.
I mean, you get to be a part of him creating life. And that is so powerful and so moving. And I just get excited about it because it's like some people are like, oh, that's so hard. And I get pregnancy can be hard, but just to be able to witness
Right.
creation and to be able to carry and know that allowed us to do that, it is powerful and amazing. And it's such a gift, right? I'm so
Yeah.
grateful for it. But yeah, I mean, it's unconditional. It's never ending. It's never stopping. A
Yeah.
mom's love.
I love that. I remember after my first kid, I thought, if you don't believe in God, have you ever seen a child come into the world? Like it's the most amazing thing. And I think it like cracked open a door to a love I had no idea. Like, and it's like, God's like, yeah, that's my love for you. Just, you're getting a
Yeah.
glimpse. You're getting a
You're
glimpse.
getting a
So
smidge of how much he loves you, which is so amazing. And that's where we get our peace and our hope is in him because we know he's a good God.
yeah. Hey, thanks for doing this. And thanks for just, I'm sure it's not easy to be on a show and be famous and be so public, but y'all have done a really great job of honoring God with everything that he's given you and your family. So I appreciate what you guys are doing in the world.
Thank you so much. Thanks. I appreciate it.
Okay. Enjoyed
Thanks
it.
for having me. Okay.
Christian parenting.